Okay, so I was determined not to start the talk with the word so. Everybody always does that. So, failed already, never mind. Okay. I was asked to give a talk on mindfulness, and there's a difference between mindfulness and sati. So it's samasati, part of the Noble Eightfold Path. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the word mindfulness and define that, I suppose, because we say the word mindfulness. Mindfulness, to my knowledge, is it's a modern word that we use, and we translate 7 different words in Pali into the word mindfulness. I'd just like to go through them because I think that's really, really useful about what mindfulness is, what it isn't, what sati is, and what sati isn't. Yeah. So in fact, actually, it's not just 7 words. Some of those 7 words have several meanings. In fact, a lot of words in Pali, in fact, nearly every damn word in Pali has so many meanings. It's absolutely nuts. So one of the first ones is sati, and it means bare attention, I would say. It means a sort of an intimate contact with sense experience right here, right now. Yeah, so it's not the commentary that you have on it. Being absorbed in sati doesn't mean that you have no commentary. It doesn't mean that you can't think or you shouldn't think, but it just means that there's enough of you in contact with what's really sensory going on. It's the data coming to your mind, let's say. So it's a sort of yeah, it's sort of being there's a visceral sense to sati. An example of this, or an example of not having this, is my cousin once come home when he was about 7 years old, and he hadn't got shoes. And my aunt said to him, "Where are your shoes?" And he said, "I don't know." She said, "Well, when did you have them, and when did you not have them?" And he said, I don't know. Just not even in contact with his feet enough to know at what point he was not wearing shoes. And you would imagine that would be a pretty strong experience going from one to the other. Sati, actually, the literal translation of sati, so far as I'm aware, I'm a little bit worried about this because I just heard this might be going on free Buddhist audio, and lots of scholars will be, I haven't in depth looked at all of these, so I might get Sangharuchi giving me a call later. But anyway, sati, as I understand it, the other meaning of sati is it's translated as memory or recollection. So I do find that this very directly relates to the other meaning of sati, which is sensory contact, largely because I find the two come together. In fact, I sometimes find memory is not a useful translation. I find recollection a better translation. Often I have the memory that I was going to meet Moksara at 2 o'clock at Sorrento Lounge. I can remember that, that's no problem. Whether I recall that at the right time is a different thing. Yeah, I know all the details, I've got them in my memory, but at 10 to 2, does that come up? And the bottom line for me is, am I in contact with my body? Because if I'm in contact with my body, there's usually like a little, there's just a little something somewhere of, oh, there's something I should be doing. So the two relate very closely, I find. And of course, the other aspect of it is that often the thing that prevents me from being in contact with my body is just to recall doing it. It's actually not that difficult when you're in the moment. You just think about it, and then you just bring your attention to your body, and it happens. So I do find the two are sort of the same thing. There's Satipatthana. I'm not going to go into that. That's a whole massive thing. But I would say that's, it literally means the foundation of mindfulness. But I would say that's I would say that's like using your sense experience to reflect on reality, I would say, using it as a raw material to reflect on reality. That doesn't do it justice, but anyway. We also translate samprajanya as mindfulness, which literally means full knowledge, which doesn't really give much of a sense. But for this, I get a sense of this is retaining your purpose. So when you're cleaning the toilet, is that part of your practice or not? Is it part of your practice, or are you just cleaning the toilet? I would say that it depends on whether you have samprajanya. When I'm cleaning the toilet and it's just, I don't want to do this, it's not part of my practice. I'm just not really in contact with anything. When I'm thinking, okay, I'm cleaning the toilet because I want the community to be, I live in the community, I want the community to be a place where it's nice to live and people are open to their experience. When you're faced with a smelly toilet, you're generally not really open to your experience. I want people to be open to their experience because I believe that awareness is a good thing, and that I believe that if you have people who live on the basis of awareness, life is better, actually. If I'm in contact with that, cleaning the toilet is definitely part of my practice. There's a thread, there's a continuity of purpose that runs from my hand right up to this. There's a golden thread that goes from the toilet bowl to this here. And if you can maintain that, your capacity to be open to the toilet bowl, to whatever mundane thing that you're doing, you've got a better chance of doing it, I'd say. So all these things are actually linked. Yoniso Manasakara, God, I'm not going to, this is rarely translated as mindfulness, but sometimes it is, but I think it's worth saying. This is like being aware of the framework that you put your experience in. It's very similar, I'd say, to the thread. It's sort of when you're driving and someone overtakes you or cuts you off or something. The actual sense, the sati sensation of that is relatively simple. It's just you put your foot on the brake and there's a bit of that. The framework that you then apply to it, whether, oh, that person must be in a hurry because they're doing something important, I'll let them go, or that person is wrong and bad, the whole framework that you use, there's an element of choice in that. And so again, that loops back round into your momentary experience, because the immediate braking sensation is one thing, then you apply the framework and then it's a tense body or it's a relaxed body. So there's a feedback loop there. Yeah, we're getting to the end of them. A tapper is enthusiasm for experience. An experience comes up. Do you go, oh, what's that? Do you lean in, or do you lean back? You get that sort of disgust feeling. Yeah. It's also, so that's a what would you say, a spontaneous response, but you can also have a slightly more willed response, because your initial response might be, ugh, but you can apply a bit of knowledge and understanding. Oh, I'm having that reversive response. That means there's something really interesting here. So you can start to be clever with that. Upeksha, equanimity. I've seen that translated as mindfulness. Again, I'm not going to go into all these. Samadhi, absorption. So that's where I love the word absorption. Often with awareness, it's like there's me here and there's the thing there. Even sometimes when I'm focusing on my breath, it's like I am here and the breath is there. Absorption is where there's not that distinction. It's like you are you're sort of part of the breath. It's not like there's a you and an it anymore. It's you are absorbed, you are sort of suffused with this experience, and you're not having such a hard distinction between it. So that is often seen as the culmination of sati. It's a good position to be in to reflect. Basically, it's not sort of magical. It's just you're in a less entrenched me-ness, let's say. If you're absorbed in an object in that way, you're able to sort of move through it and with it and reflect on it and sort of let it unfold in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you were sort of holding it at arm's length, let's say. You're sort of it's a difference between looking at a swimming pool and getting in it. Yeah. The last one is metta. So in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, it describes metta, and then it says one should sustain this mindfulness metta. Yeah. So I just wanted to give a broader overview of what mindfulness was. What we're going to focus on is sati, but all of those other things I do think come into it. But yeah, mindfulness, I would say, I've never particularly liked the word myself. I would say intimacy, depth, fascination, serenity, and energy, actually. Vigilance, authenticity, and presence. I'd say those are the things that when I think of mindfulness, it's like they have an emotional response. Pali words, I like looking at them and getting an idea what they are, but they tend not to have a response, sort of response from here. Why would you want to be mindful? I mean, when life is pleasurable, it does make it more pleasurable, more deeply pleasurable. I would say that, and it is good if you can find pleasure in mindfulness, but I think if that's the only reason that you're into mindfulness, there's some people who really just spontaneously enjoy meditation and like meditating for the sake of meditating. I am not one of those people. I'm definitely not one of those people. I would say if having pleasure is a great add-on, but I would say that it's not very sustainable for certain reasons that I'll get to. So one of the main things that I appreciate about at least trying to be more mindful is it gives me a little bit of a chance of avoiding that second dart. So an immediate experience of pain comes in, or it might even be pleasure actually, and I can notice that and I can make sure there are not the consequences that come along with that. I can sort of cut that short. If I can catch an argument in the first 10 seconds, it makes a huge, huge difference to my state of mind over the next 24 hours. Absolutely massive. That little bit of extra mindfulness there. Now, the difficulty with that is that I find that it's not always apparent, because the argument that you don't have is not as noticeable as the argument that you do have. Yeah. So it's really important when you actually have those moments of clarity to I'm doing that thing again. Okay. Not to just go, oh, okay, carry on. It's, oh, I had that. So what have I saved myself here? What kind of hassle? What happened last time I did? And you can sort of feed the motivation for mindfulness by actually being aware, applying more attention to that. Yeah. I feel like this is going to go on a little bit longer, so I shall cut a few things out. The Buddha said that mindfulness is like the undying, and unmindfulness being like you're already dead. And if you equate your life to experience, I mean, what else is your life but this moment right here, right now? And your choice is to either turn up to that moment or not. Mindfulness is giving you your life, actually. I mean, that's actually what we're dealing with here. It's the experience of being alive, yeah? And that very closely relates to me. I think the reason why I'm often unmindful, or I often push things away, is because I think that I can have the good the nice experiences in my life, and I can just get rid of the unnice experiences. Now, I listened to a talk by Brené Brown who said that you can't selectively numb. And I thought, oh, that's clever. I like that. And it sort of went in, but it didn't really go in. And it was probably a couple of years later where I thought, I kind of believe that you can't selectively numb. Yeah, you're either turning down the resolution on your life or turning it up, sort of in a broad sense. But the way that I'm still acting now is that I think that I can turn the resolution down on the pain and turn the resolution up on the pleasure. And at the moment, I'm in the process of exploring that. Actually, is that really true? I think it is, actually. I think that is actually how it is, which is quite frightening. Yeah. It's not possible to select what you are aware and unaware of. There's a general level of this or this. So yeah, you numb the fear, you numb the pain, and you numb the joy as well. And it's your choice, actually. So the final thing, well, probably not the final thing, but I think the main thing in relation to the Eightfold Path is that the crux of the matter from a Buddhist point of view, because all of these things are actually, what I've mentioned is in the realm of the psychological, I would say. The crux of the matter from a Buddhist point of view is that you are gathering, how to put this? You are gathering evidence. You are gathering moments of experience of evidence that you can then use to reflect on. If you're keen enough, that evidence will be accurate. You need it to be accurate, because nothing else is going to convince you to make that step into insight other than something that's really compelling. Yeah. So all things are impermanent. Do I want to believe that? Hell no, I do not want to read. I'm not interested in that. You know, I like to say that I am because I'm a Buddhist, but actually when it comes down to it, I do not want to know that. Yeah. If I've looked at successive moments of my life, successive experiences again and again and again and again, there's only so, and in detail and honestly, there's only so long I can do that and pretend that that's not true. Yeah. Same with insubstantiality, same with unsatisfactoriness. So from a Buddhist point of view, you're gathering evidence for that. Because I mean, there's a, in the ordination process, I had a conversation about puja, and I was saying puja doesn't work. Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing, but puja doesn't work. And the guy I was with was sort of saying, trying to politely put forward, you're not qualified to say that. You have not had enough experience of this to actually have an opinion on it. Basically, he was, you know, trying to be very polite, you know, and sort of present it in a way that I could get. But I'd done a few, I'd sort of looked at it, I'd dabbled, and fair enough, if I'd have said, I'm not interested in doing it, that would be very different. You can't argue with that. You're not interested in doing it, that's fine. But to say it doesn't work, it's like, well, you don't know. Sorry. So making a statement has to be backed up by expertise, and mindfulness offers you expertise in life because you're studying life. You're studying that moment. So, I'll give another couple of examples of that, actually. When I first started meditating, I meditated absolutely religiously every day. I thought it was brilliant, except for when I got really drunk. When I got really drunk, the next morning, I did not meditate. I was very tired and I was hungover. Yeah. Now, Sangha, who taught me meditation, he was saying, it's really important you meditate on that day. And I didn't understand why, because meditation is to have pleasure, it's to get focused. That's the point of meditation. It's to stop thinking. It's all these ideas of what meditation was. The purpose of meditation is to be with the mind that you've made. That's all it is, actually, is to be with the mind that you've made. And I was doing a load of actions here, and then it was like, okay, I'm willing to look at my mind in these situations, but not in that situation. And really, I didn't want to look at it in that situation because I knew if I did, I would stop getting drunk. I knew the consequence. Intuitively, I knew the consequence. Yeah, and eventually, you know, I trusted him, actually. I trusted him. And I meditated, and it was horrendous. It was absolutely awful. It was the worst meditation I have had from one point of view, and the best and most productive meditation I have ever had from another point of view. And I think that other point of view is more valuable, actually. It's not about having a nice experience in meditation, it's about learning. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it comes to the title of the talk, I suppose. Ladies and gentlemen, if anybody on board knows how to fly a plane, please make your way to the front of the aircraft. That is generally my experience of going from being unmindful to being mindful. You're just a passenger, actually. You're carried by a whole load of complex systems which you have no awareness of. You're on a plane, there's all this stuff going on. You've no idea why it's going on or how or what, or you haven't even seen that there's a pilot. Yeah, you're just kind of there as a passenger. And at some point, those systems that are carrying you, those habits, the habitual things that have been put in place by parents, society, yourself, they start to break down. Yeah. And there's a little thing that says, there's a problem, your habits aren't up to dealing with this, you need to do something about it. And at which point you have to step up to the cockpit, you have to step up. And I find that image of a cockpit particularly useful because there's two things that happen in a cockpit. It's the only place on the plane that you can see what the hell is happening forward. And it's the only place on the plane that you can do anything about it. The two come together. Yeah. Being able to see what's happening and being able to act in relation to what is happening. Yeah. That's what happens when it goes well, and it's uncomfortable stepping into that space when you've neglected that space. And ideally, a mindfulness practice is getting yourself to go into that space as often as you possibly can, so that you don't leave it too long. If there's a plane with no pilot for a long period of time, very, very bad things happen. Yeah. The other thing, actually, which is a little side point, but I do think it's quite important, is when they say, could anyone come up to the front of the plane? Sometimes you stay sat down and somebody else goes up. And this is my experience, particularly in my 20s. It's like, I wasn't willing to step up and actually make decisions about my life. So I'd wait for someone else to make those decisions for me. And that's, I don't know which is worse, having no pilot or having some random person as a pilot. Neither of them are as good as being in the driving seat, even if you're not entirely qualified. Yeah, you'll get qualified quick. So the last thing I want to talk about is how one might be mindful. And I think a lot of this comes down to Pratitya Samutpada, which is this being, that becomes. I think the habitual response to mindfulness is the way that we have with a lot of things. Force it, make it happen. Like apply will and do it. The amount of mindfulness that you need to break through into a perceiving reality, it's a lot. Yeah, it's probably you probably don't have enough. Yeah. So instead of focusing on the peddling part, the sort of forcing it part, go one step back. Observe when you meditate. There's sometimes where you appear to be more in contact with your experience and less. Yeah. Spend 6 months noting that down and then noting what you've done in the previous 24 hours. I mean, it's really practical, actually. It's really, really practical. And I mean, for myself, if I've had an argument, my meditation's screwed. I can't stand the breath at all. I'm justifying my own existence and everything that I've said in the argument. Yeah. So I'd just like to say, I think this is something that each of us needs to do because we have our own temperaments, our own lives, and so on. But I'd just like to share a few. One for me is spending money on particular things that directly affect my physical experience. It's when I moved into the community, someone mentioned this to me. I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And now I have a policy that I will spend as much money as is necessary on my pillow, my mattress, my underwear, my shoes, my glasses, and my toothbrush. It's something that directly impinges upon my physical experience. Go to town on them, really, really do it. Why not? The next thing for me is going to the toilet when I need the toilet. I tend to get really involved in things, in projects, and I sort of lose myself in that. And it's like, oh no, I'll go to the toilet in a bit, or it's sometimes food as well. Oh no, I'll get food later. And there's pain in my belly or pain in my bladder, and it habituates not looking at my body. If your body is in pain, do something about it, because otherwise you are just learning how to not look at your body. Yeah. Contact with people who care, I find very useful. I'm just more relaxed around them, which is good. And the other thing is particularly not just people who care, if there's also people who share your values and understand what you're trying to do, because I live in a community. I've had people say to me like things like, oh, blimey, you're eating a lot this week. And it's completely neutral, and I trust everybody enough to sort of observe things about me. But it's like, oh yeah, I am eating up. Like I've had seconds and thirds for every meal this week. Why? And maybe I'm just hungry. That's all right, but maybe I'm not. And it's just having other eyes on me. I didn't like that when I first moved into a community, but as I've learned to trust those people, I find it absolutely invaluable now. They'll pick up on things that I won't pick up, and they trust me enough to be able to say it, and I'm not going to go, whoa, whoa, you know, have a bit of a thing about it. There's a few others which I'll just say, I won't explain because I think time's running on, but joy and playfulness, that's really important. And that comes with discipline. I've had periods in my life where I've had no work and I don't become more mindful, put it that way. I've also had periods where I'm working like a crazy thing and I'm not more mindful. There's a bell curve in there. Saying no, I think, is really important. My diary on my phone is in a folder, and the folder is called No. I have to go into the folder called No every time I go to my diary. Yeah. Making appointments because I think that people want that of me and I want to be liked by them just means I have a life that's got too much stuff in it. I'm running from one thing to another, and a life full of things that I don't want to do. It's really silly. It's really silly. The chances of me being mindful under those conditions are next to zero, basically. And the chances of me disappointing other people are pretty high as well. So the last thing, how long have we got?
What's the time?
This does a thing. Oh, it usually does a thing. It's 20:36. 36 minutes.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Oh, where are we going? There we go. So the last thing is ethics, I would say. Ethics and metta, Maitri, I tend to like the word a bit better, Maitri. Ethics, what to say about this? I was going to say a lot about it, but I think I do need to keep it fairly short. Can keep it short. Okay, so my sense is what ethics, the threefold path: ethics, meditation, and wisdom. Yeah, ethics, a solid ethical practice leads to a solid meditative practice. Solid meditative practice leads to a solid grounding in wisdom. And the way that works, I feel, is that if your practice of ethics is grubby, insight is going to be painful and disruptive. Yeah. If you go around, it's very simple, you know. I mean, actually, a concrete example: eating meat. So I would not look at that issue really when I ate meat. Just I went on a 2-week retreat to Pamaloka. During that 2 weeks, I wasn't eating meat. I was able to reflect on the fact of what happens when you eat meat when I wasn't doing it. If you close your eyes and punch someone in the face, are you going to want to open your eyes? It's not going to be a pretty sight. It's like, oh, I've just done that. They're upset. I don't want to do that. So generally, when you're doing, when you're involved in grubby actions, you don't want to look at the consequences. You don't want to look at the consequences in the world, and you don't want to look at the consequences in your mind. So my sense is that ethics doesn't lead to concentration or awareness. Ethics just makes awareness pleasurable. That's all it does, really. If you live a harmless, blameless life just by consequence of being brought up very polite or something, I don't know, seeing that your actions have consequences, seeing that, seeing the laws of karma, seeing the suffering of others, it's not really going to affect your life. You're not really going to have to change that much. It's not going to be disruptive. It's not going to be painful. The other way around it is. And yeah, I just find ethics again and again, the reasons why I get bogged down in my head, the reasons why I'm not looking at a situation is because I'm not being as responsible as I can towards a situation. I'm behaving in a way that makes that thing worse, actually. And not by anybody else's standards, by my own values. Yeah. So I think I'll probably leave it